also thread the heat shrink down in advance, so
Yeah.
it's there, and when you get them connected,
Right.
or you'll be doing it again.
You'll be breaking the solder joints and starting over. And for this piece of heat shrink here to cover that connection, I'd probably make a piece probably about 6 inches long.
Wow. Okay. I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, we don't want that any water to get inside that joint. And for the others, probably somewhere around 1.5 to 2 inches.
Where I'm just doing extending the leads on the cables, just an inch or two is okay, but for the solenoids, a bigger section.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we won't need to worry about the uninsulated shield as far as heat shrink. So once you have a heat shrink on, take the tube of flux and flux each one of the wires.
Okay. I don't know if I ordered flux.
You probably didn't, because they didn't sell it at Marlin P. Jones. I buy that locally.
And before, well, what did you just click? That little black button on the side.
One side is fuel. Turn the fuel on, the other side ignites it.
Okay.
Lay out the solder like this. What are we going to attach to? This right here.
Sure.
If you lay this thing down,
Use
lock
this
it
stand.
If you don't, you'll melt it.
Okay. Good to know.
Wires twist. Flux them.
So flux both sets of wires.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pick up a little solder. Just touch it to the wire. And you may want to set up a little fan or something to kind of blow this smoke away from you.
Yeah.
For these solenoids, you won't need this wire. You can just cut it out.
Okay. The uninsulated wire.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you will need it for the sensors. So snip that one out. Alright, at this point, this is where it'd be handy to have something heavy like this. Take your wire, hold it down.
Do you need to turn you pressed the fuel down and then you did the ignite button?
And then you can adjust the heat down here. Like once that thing's been running for a few moments, it'll get good and hot, and you can turn that heat back down a little bit by turning down
Okay.
your end. Because it don't need to be near as hot as it can get, because it just burns the solder up.
How do you turn it off?
Just kill the fuel.
Okay.
Just there, just shut it down.
Okay.
So pick up a little solder with both wires tinned. It makes it real easy to stick it together. Just touch them together. Hold it for a few seconds. That's it.
Wow.
They're stuck.
When you say tinned, that's the flux.
Tinned means that you coated the end of a wire in solder.
Oh,
It's
okay.
tinned. That's it.
So what does the flux do? Helps the tin stick?
No, it spreads the heat through
Oh,
the
okay.
wire. Let me take one of these. Take this wire right here, and I'll show you if I try to solder this wire what happens without flux. Pick up a little bit of solder. You just don't want to pick up the solder very well. See, on the back side of it, there's no solder on the back side. On that side, there's a little bit of solder, but what that flux does is it spreads that heat throughout the entire wire. But solder will not stick to the wire until the wire gets to some temperature. If I'm touching one side, it heats that one side of the wire up, the solder will stick to it. But the other side of the wire doesn't spread the heat to, so there's no solder on it. When I put that flux on there and I touch that to it, that flux, it bulls, it melts, and that solder just runs to the wire. And it's everything. You've got to use it.
Okay.
And then when you get ready to heat shrink these things up, I would probably solder a bunch of them first, because you don't want to take this thing off while it's still hot.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to, but if you're not careful, this piece is plastic and you'll melt it trying to get it off. So it's preferable if you don't do it. Now you can run this thing as a torch two ways. You can run it as a torch just the way it is, or you can change tips and put this tip in.
Okay.
I would probably just suggest just to run it the way it is. Just fire it up. Turn the gas up a little stronger. You just want to kind of, don't hold it in one place because it'll burn the heat shrink up. Just hold steady heat on it. That's good. And that will be a watertight connection because it actually goes up on the wire.
Okay.
Then run your other piece of heat shrink across the connection to kind of find where the connection is and center it.
The bigger piece that's going to cover both of them up. Okay.
Like I say, about 6 inches on this piece here is plenty big enough. No less than 6 inches though.
Okay.
Good.